Okay, I'm going to continue with like alternative views to pretty much like the cult religion of AA. So I'm actually going to, in a sense, use their own steps against them and everything. So I'm going to pretty much start at the beginning with their step one. Admit to ourselves that we're completely powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. So you see, like, in a sense, trying to get into like behaviors and habits and everything with like saying like everything was unmanageable and everything. So like you don't get into like and of course then you don't get into like the habits and behaviors and being able to change them for the positive. And also you admit that you're powerless. So like you then start to see where you're getting broken down. Like, hey, look, we start off by saying you're completely powerless. Then, like, when we move further along, you showcase, like, oh, hey, look, you're, like, totally hopeless and you're totally worthless because of you're an alcoholic. So this, in essence, sets you up for that path of, like, hey, look, like, without us, you're completely powerless, completely hopeless, and completely worthless. So, starts with step one. Now, with like the modern like advances in like science and psychology and everything, like especially with like neural like the neuroplasticity and like the brain scans and stuff that they can do with like the showcase, like, oh, hey, look, this is actually what happens like when people like me drink, and like there's that like in a sense like chemical reaction that we have that just basically opens the floodgates for like a dopamine. And so, hey, look, we have like in a sense, you could say an allergic reaction, but like, are we completely powerless? No, we're not, because you have the ability, the power to be able to change your habits and change your behaviors. So now, I mentioned like neuroscience and like the brain scans and stuff like that. So like, you can see it actually like yes, it does affect like the brain in essence. And so when you see this as like a mental disorder, then you realize like you're not necessarily powerless against like a mental disorder. You can realize, hey, look, I've got like a problem like with my brain. I need help kind of figuring it out and everything. And then you can with through like neuroplasticity and everything. And of course, like it's much more complex than like what I can get to in like a 10 to 15 minute video here. So like people that are really into stuff like that they could check out is probably be like Andrew Huberman. And so like he would be able to get, you could check him out and stuff and be able to like get it more in depth on that. And of course, I'm just kind of like touch not even just the tip of the iceberg. I'm just kind of like the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. Just kind of like quickly mention it and everything. So when you look at like a mental disorder, and then you take a step back and like, okay, we need to start like in essence rewiring the brain, and then start attacking in a sense attacking our like negative behaviors or negative habits. And then we realize like, okay, well, getting to the second part, like unmanageable. Well, was everything completely unmanageable where we like went completely unhinged and off the rails and everything? Well, there was still quite a few things that I was doing quite well that was manageable. I mean, yes, I was unemployed. I was still paying my bills and stuff and everything. And like, I know there's going to be a bunch of people like, well, yeah, like that's not the point and everything. Like, there are going to be people that like are going to try and do some mental gymnastics to try and defend these 12 steps and everything of like this religious cult and everything. So now I'm going to keep referring to it as a religious cult because of the BITE method: behavior, information, thought, and emotion. And this organization pretty much controls all of them. Like for instance, in this case, I'll touch on the I, the information. Again, all the information you need is within the first 164 pages of the big book. Disregard all the scientific and psychological advances we made in the last 90, 100 years. Disregard that. You're just that stuff is just going to make you too smart for this program, and like we got to dumb you down enough so that way you become dependent on us with this first step. Like, hey, look, now you're powerless. You need us. So getting back to like the management, unmanageable part. Now, are there aspects like, okay, like your drinking is maybe unmanageable and everything because of like the way it has the substance has an effect on like your brain? Yes. Now, does that consider and necessarily like make you powerless? So with a mental disorder, so you're powerless over your OCD, you're powerless over your anxiety, you're powerless over your depression or everything. Well, those are other mental disorders that you can sit there and get professional help with, and in some cases, like I'll use depression as an example. If you're at the point where like you do need medication, it's going to be a lot better for you to, in a sense, manage your life and like get into like all the the stuff I've talked about like before, like with the fitness and nutrition, getting like all that stuff in order and like kind of taking a look at your again habits and behaviors and be like, okay, I'm going to start implementing positive behaviors, positive habits, and going to the gym. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to be the elite athlete like Tom Brady or Jerry Rice or Wayne Gretzky or anything. No, that just means if all you can do is go in and walk on the treadmill for half an hour, hey, there's your workout and everything. As my cat is demanding attention like usual. And so there's your workout. And then, of course, nutrition is a big thing, too. Like I've talked about this, like you kind of need to get that in order. So there's like another habit and behavior. Like, okay, instead of like eating Twinkies for breakfast, maybe I have like a bowl of Cheerios for breakfast. Habit, behaviors, and like then when it comes to that, like actual mental health, maybe you get like a professional help for your depression. You start maybe like a journaling, do like get into meditation or like do some sort of like a routine where you can sit there and actually like oh hey, look at me. You can feel like you're an onset of like one of those like episodes, like I don't necessarily like using that, but like for a lack of a better word, you feel like you're getting starting to depression coming on, a wave of it. Maybe you have ways that you can sit there and like, okay, well, I know if I do this, like maybe get out for like half-hour walk or something, that's going to help alleviate the symptoms. It's not making going to necessarily make it go away, but it's going to help with that. And so it's like with medication though, like with depression, you might be at the point where you do need medication though, and with doing all the stuff that you're like getting your stuff in order, like nutrition, fitness, like your mental health, everything. It's a lot better to take maybe 5 milligrams of an antidepressant once a day versus 10 milligrams 3 times a day. That's the kind of like the point of getting things in order, using like all the advances that we've seen in science and psychology over the last 90, 100 years. And so this is why I talk big about like smart recovery, because it gets into like a cognitive behavioral therapy and stuff like that, where you can actually sit there and attack the problem logically, not just like throw it into the wind like, oh hey, look, I'm completely dependent on this AA program, and like because without them I'm going to be totally powerless and totally useless and worthless, and when instead you're starting to get into the behaviors and habits and start replacing them. So it's like the same thing like with like drinking. Are you necessarily powerless of going like down the same road like from work to home, knowing that like, hey, look, I'm going to pass by my favorite bar, and oh hey, look, I'm going to like you're going to get into that keep that habit of going in and getting drunk, whereas you can go down a different road, change your habit and like change your behavior and bypass the bar that you normally go to and everything. So you're not necessarily powerless, and you can get into being able to manage your life and everything better than you were when you're drinking. Like instead of like having to drink to like cope with life, to manage your life, you then start finding other alternatives to manage with life, like with stress. Like oh, you're stressed out, like it's the weekend, you drink. Okay, you're happy, you drink. You find like you're sad, you drink. You find different ways to cope. Like okay, you had a stressful week at work. Instead of going to the bar and getting drunk, you find ways like, okay, well, maybe I start surrounding myself with better people, like with the community that I've talked about before. Maybe like I can start surrounding myself with people that like I can go to and be like, hey, look, and like this just happened. I need like just someone to vent or something. Again, like same thing like with professional help. Maybe like with like behaviors like with getting like you're happy. Okay, instead of celebrating like, oh hey look, I just got a promotion, let's go out and drink and celebrate. Maybe again back to the community, you can like get with the people that like know that maybe you have a problem or had a problem and like you need to stay away from alcohol, and you can help celebrate. Maybe like you go out and start getting into like a hobby like playing like a card game like Magic the Gathering or like a Lord Connor or something, or maybe you get into like D&D, or maybe you go down to like the local rec center and you maybe like do like a quick walk around the track or something. Finding stuff that where you can when you're happy you can celebrate in a healthy way, and the same thing when you're getting sad you can cope in healthy ways. So yeah, are you necessarily powerless and your life becomes unmanageable? No, because you do have the power to be able to change your habits and behaviors, and your life might not necessarily be completely in order, but wasn't unmanageable like they go out to make. Now, switching the shifting that, are you like admitting that we're completely powerless? Well, hey, look, we admit that we have the power to be able to change our behaviors and our habits. Our lives had become unmanageable. No, we take it a lot like step back on an objective, logical view, like where can I do better in my life? So, again, are we completely powerless and lives become unmanageable? No, you do have the power to be able to change your habits and behaviors, like I said, and you do have ways to sit there and inject positive reinforcements for your behaviors and habits to make your life that much better and not necessarily always completely unmanageable. So, yeah, pretty much I'm going to take the try and take the literature and start like tearing it down and be like, hey look, that's completely bullshit, and here's like a different way to actually look at it and like in a more positive way.